had a question about just weight loss and management and all of the phases that we're going to be looking at, in order to get to his or her goal. But what I wanted to address is mastering your caloric surplus, your maintenance, and your deficit. Each one is crucial for whichever goal you want. When you're going into a caloric surplus, that's going to be for you to put on the most amount of muscle tissue as possible. We're looking for 1 to 2 years on average, or maybe 6 months of a caloric surplus. So maybe you need to gain more muscle mass on your glutes or your legs, or you wanted to gain more muscle mass on your pecs, your chest, your shoulders, and biceps. The only time that you're going to have the most optimal amount of chance to gain that muscle mass is through a caloric surplus. Now, when you're in a caloric surplus, you just have to be aware of your body fat percentage. Now, if your body fat percentages are climbing too high, you're going to have to hit a mini cut, a little phase of either a maintenance or a deficit to control that body fat, and as well as keeping up with your conditioning protocol. So whether you're walking for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 60 minutes a day, just to keep your body fat at bay. Now, this is a pretty healthy place to be, a caloric surplus. You're going to be gaining muscle and you're going to be at optimal health. The step down from that is the maintenance. This one you can sustain for life because your body does love homeostasis. Now, when you're at this current weight, your weight doesn't really go up, stress levels are good, your health is good, bodily functions are working the way that it's supposed to. You do want to keep a little bit of conditioning here, so doing a little bit of cardio would be beneficial here. Now, this you could sustain for the rest of your life because you would be eating an optimal amount of vegetables and foods coming in and things like that. And as well as your body's not stressed out. Now this one, if we were in a fat loss phase for some reason, the scale didn't start changing, you could go back into a maintenance, and that would be maybe 1, 2, 3 weeks of a maintenance. Now when we're talking about a deficit, there's a lot of risks that come with deficits. So a lot of people are in deficits almost for life because they're trying to manage their weight, so they stop eating everything and then they're constantly in a deficit. But a deficit, the whole point of that is to end it, to get to your fat loss goal. But a lot of people will be in a deficit for life. So this is gonna increase your chance of injuries. It's gonna increase a lot of hormonal functions and a lot of issues within your bodily functions and things like that. And it's just gonna put you at a higher risk for being in deficiencies within your body. So with a deficit, you're supposed to be in and out. And that's why I highly urge people that start a deficit to be as regimented as possible, because you really only have a time frame of 2 to 3 months. That's what a deficit is supposed to be. And if you use it appropriately, you'll get, what you're coming for as far as 25 to 34 pounds of body fat coming off solidly. And in the third month, maybe another 10. But that's just to give you an example on that note. But let me show you a couple examples on this graph. So like I said, caloric surplus, 1 to 2 years is what we're looking to stay in. A maintenance, 1 to 3 weeks, and then a deficit. So an example of a good fat loss is they started at 200, they came down to 180, and maybe they popped back up to 182, stayed at 180, and then they took their next dip to 170, went back up to 175, maybe 173, came down 170, and then dropped off to 168. Now you see these little slopes? Those would be the maintenance phases. Now bad fat loss is what everybody wants to do, and they want to try it anyways and beat the laws of health every single time. But what people want to do, they start training and things like that, and they're like, all right, I just want to go straight down. And yeah, it's a good concept if we could, but look at what happens. You start at 200, you drop down to 180, and then you drop down to 170, and then your body's tired of it. It comes back and it rebounds because you haven't built a sustainable diet or a sustainable lifestyle. So you come back to 180, then you're at 180, you're like, well, at least I didn't come up to 200, and then you slip a bag of Doritos and then you're at 210, and then guess what? You ended up in a worse place than you started. So you're at 220. This is what we don't want to do. And just to emphasize on this, we're going to show you what people normally do when they're doing this type of thing. So they'll come in, they'll do a bunch of cardio, they're getting after it, they're crushing it. They lose 12 pounds in the first week, all body fat. You get the beginner gains, and you put on this muscle mass, and then you lose another 5, and then you lose 1. And then what happens is that, like, you just gain 3, and then you gain 5, and then you lost 0, and then you gained another 2, and then etc. It keeps going on until you end up back where you started. So 16 weeks later, the summer's here, and then you're down 0 pounds, or you're even up 1 pound from 16 weeks. And then you think you're in a good spot, but you really didn't do anything. Now, a sustainable and gradual approach is doctor recommended 1 to 2 pounds. Now, it sounds lame, but this is what it looks like. Gradually, this person's going to do better. So they might get 5 pounds, and then they'll lose 1, 2, and then maybe they won't lose any, and then they're up 3 pounds. And then what happens next? They go back down 1, they go back down maybe 0, 2, 1, 2, and then if this person is so disciplined and gets like a 5 pound or 12 pound, I'm willing to wager that this person is going to keep that weight off versus this person that's trying to do it so dramatically. And then 16 weeks later, they're down 32 pounds on the 1 to 2 pound approach. So that just goes to show, that these are the types of phases that we need to hit. The caloric surplus will come in later for the people that, maybe they dropped off all this body fat and they don't like how their physique looks because they look kind of flat or square. So maybe they might need to build more shoulders or more chest, or maybe their butt just runs flat, so they need more glutes. So these are things that you need to think about when you're setting up for your goal and you're setting up for success. So if you're trying to put on more muscle tissue, you need that surplus. If you like where you're at, we'll be in between that maintenance for health-wise and the deficit. I urge you, when you're in the deficit, like we're going into summer, 2 to 3 months, get in, get out, get it done.